Okay, quick. This is 2.2 VOD, and we're going to talk about where Earth has been and where we're at now. And if you think about it, Earth 4.5 billion years ago was a tremendously different place. We get slammed into by a planet, Theia, that is about the size of Mars, and as it does, it creates this molten mess, which part of ejected out into space, which eventually solidified and became our moon, which is a very important thing. But as it happened, um, you know, Earth pretty much went molten, and so we see it start to cool down about 4.4, 4.3, 4.2 billion years ago. And as it does, it's trying to heal itself. Well, in the process, we see a lot of volcanic activity, tectonic activity. Um, our atmosphere didn't really exist, so we see this intense ultraviolet radiation coming through. Um, and then over a period of time, about 3 billion years ago, we see our atmosphere starting to develop. How did it develop, right? So we have all these gases in our primordial Earth, hydrogen and helium, which clearly is what the nebulas were made out of. But as it starts to cool off and the volcanic activity takes place, we see methane, and we see carbon dioxide, and we see water vapor start to go into the atmosphere. And so as a result, the moment that we see photosynthesis taking place with cyanobacteria or blue-green bacteria or plants, once that happens, we see air and oxygen being produced. Now, during this time, 4.5 billion years ago, no life. But we see this primordial soup, this chemicals that are here on Earth. And again, this is 3.5 billion years ago. But basically, what the thought is that for somewhere between 40 to 50,000 years, it rained as Earth cooled. And so we see this water in the oceans, and then some magic spark of life takes place, right? So what do we see? Our first life is really nothing more than amino acids and amino acids that have joined. And so the primordial soup, or the heterotrophic hypothesis, is a really good starting place. Then we also have the seeds of life, the seeds from space, and panspermia hypothesis, which basically said that something, a microbe from outer space, traveled to Earth. And, that's out there as well. And then the chemoautotroph, or chemoautotrophic hypothesis, which basically is very similar to that life in those hydrothermal vents that we talked about, where life is found in the deep mid-ocean ridges, in black smokers, consuming the bacteria, consuming the hydrogen sulfide. And so maybe our first organisms were these chemoautotrophs. Either way, the easiest thing for us to do is go back and look at the fossil record, right? So we go back and look at the fossil record, and all of a sudden we start to see these single cell organisms coming around 3 billion years ago. Well, this is a very, very big thing, right? So now we have a way of tracking what happens. It's called a fossil, or a fossil record, right? It's giving us the information. The problem is single-celled and soft-body organisms aren't leaving too much of a fossil. So we have to really, really search and seek them out. What's our fossil record showing us, right? So clearly organisms are evolving into what they are. And we see that a large majority of organisms are going extinct over time. Now, that's not having an influence of the human race on there. As the human race comes into the picture, we speed that up. But the reality is, over a period of time, a number of species increase. And as we advance, the species become more organized and more complex. And so we have had 5 massive extinctions take place over the years, and we are now in what we refer to as the sixth mass extinction. We call this new epoch the uh, uh, um, the time where humans have changed everything. It's called the Anthropocene, and so the reality is of these mass extinctions, we're in the middle of the sixth largest one, and we're causing it. Over a long period of time, we see large, complex organisms. About 600 million years ago, plant, animal, fungi. And if we look at how it all breaks down, the other day I told you about the fact that what we've been able to do is trace ourselves, our origins of everything in life, back to a sponge. And so, if we look at how we decipher history and how we look at the tree of life, the tree of life basically has three prongs. It's got the bacteria, which is archaeobacteria, which all that means is ancient bacteria, and then you have the bacteria. And then you have eukaryotes. Eukaryotes breaking down into protists, plants, fungi, and animalia, or animals. And so, if we look at basically the six divisions, which are now considered the five divisions, or I'm sorry, now considered the six divisions, we're able to break down bacteria into ancient bacteria and regular bacteria of today, and then we have protists, plantae, fungi, and animalia. Basic conclusion: life on Earth, as we know it, the last 3 billion years has become what it is. About 1.5 billion years ago, our atmosphere became what it is, and so it's had a hard time at developing where it goes. But the main point that I'm giving you is that through energy and energy flow, we've been able to develop our world as it is, and so chemistry has played a huge role. Now, don't forget, chemistry is allowing us to solve environmental problems. So, I think with that, I think that gives us a good understanding of life on Earth and where we've come from. And I appreciate you listening and paying attention, and hope you have a great day.